Good morning. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to another Think Tank. Today, we will be talking about wholesalers and working with wholesalers. So, I want to say thank you to Courtney from our Cranford office. She brought up this topic with something to cover today, which sometimes I do need help on different topics. So, whether you're in our Cranford office, our East Brunswick office, or of course our Hamilton office, please reach out to me if there are any topics you'd like covered, as I always appreciate the input and feedback and love covering things that you guys need help on or just want to discuss. So jumping right into working with wholesalers. First question is, where do they source their properties? And wholesalers are basically soliciting people that are in a pre-foreclosure status, people that are delinquent on their mortgages, absentee owners, where they own a property but don't live there, as well as people that have vacant homes, and also owners that have equity that have been in their homes for a long time, distressed properties that are beat up on the exterior that they can drive by. They call it driving for dollars. And when they see a house with the grass really high, with mail in the mailbox, which means people aren't attending to the mail, etc., and just not well maintained, they solicit those homeowners through calls, mailers, text messages, emails. I've received a bunch of solicitations from wholesalers. I actually receive them weekly through owning an investment property. So that's where they source properties. Now, is it the job of an agent? Absolutely. This sub-industry of our real estate industry has been created because our industry of agents are not as outbound as they should be, and that's allowed agents to come in, or sorry, wholesalers to come in and collect the difference between what they can put the contract in for with the homeowner and what they could find another buyer willing to pay for it. So they call it an assignment fee, which is almost equal to commission, basically. But let's talk about working with wholesalers. I just wanted to explain what their role is. So they basically get a property, John Doe, get it under contract with an option to either perform and close, and allowing them to reassign the contract. So they put John Doe's property under contract for $250,000, and it's worth, let's say, $350,000 to use easy numbers. And they find a buyer, they market the property, shop it around, and if they can find a buyer for $275, $280, or $300, they will keep the difference of what's called an assignment fee, and that difference goes directly to them as their profit, or I like to say it's equal to commission, but that's how they get paid, and that is the process. So their job is to find properties that are below value, good deals, put them in contract, and assign the contract to someone else. They do not close for the most part. Most of them are not in a position to close, nor are they willing to close or want to close. They want to sell that contract for the spread and their assignment fee, and that's how they make money. So, what to know about these when working with wholesalers. And if you guys have any questions, please put them into the comments and I'll address them. One, there's something to be cautious of and be aware of, and that's called a daisy chain. Now, that's when you have multiple wholesalers assigning the same property. So that John Doe property for $250, one wholesaler A, gets it under contract. They shop it around. Wholesaler B puts it under contract with wholesaler A for $265. Wholesaler B then shops it around and gets someone else, wholesaler C, to put it under contract for $280. And that continues until who knows where and when as far as pricing. But then if you're at the end and you are buying it from wholesaler D or B or C, that's called a daisy chain. And a lot of times those deals rarely close because there's too many cooks in the kitchen, too many hands in the pot, and something goes wrong. And also the seller may see eventually that their 250 contract is really being sold for 325 and have a problem with it. So stay away from daisy chains. Another thing is you're not a dual agent with wholesale deals. You are representing the buyer if you're on the buy side. And Courtney brought this up to me. We had a brief discussion about it where a wholesaler reached out to her, and we've had numerous agents that have been sought out by wholesalers saying, hey, find me properties. We've also had numerous agents get offers on their properties that were below market value, below the list price. And the wholesaler says, well, I can't make money on this at this price, so you got to get me a lower price. And that's not our job. We have a fiduciary to the seller. But in this case where one of our agents was solicited by a wholesaler this week and was told, I need you to find me deals that are pre-foreclosures or foreclosures or short sale scenarios so I could wholesale them. We winded up firing that client because if you're going to do the heavy lifting of finding whether it's short sales or absentee owners or distressed properties where the sellers are ready to unload them and want to sell them, why not just list them on the market, which is a cleaner way to practice real estate. It's not enabling a sub-industry which is taking business away from us. And you get to build your business this way versus the wholesaler's business. So we decided to fire that client. If we're going to cold call, door knock, or spend time researching properties, that's not a client we want to really represent. To find those properties for him or her and then just give it to them so they can turn around and assign it or sell it to someone else and make a profit, a VIG, or an assignment fee. We would just, if we're contacting the homeowners anyway, list the properties. So if you get solicited, you don't have to work with everyone, guys. Carl always says, the best client is sometimes the client you fire. So in that, if you're going to do all of that heavy lifting, it just makes sense to list the property. So we winded up firing that client. Do we work with wholesalers and sell their properties to our buyers? Absolutely. What to keep in mind when working directly with a wholesaler is that usually there's no commission built in. So you have to either get a buyer agency agreement and get the buyer upfront prior to showing it, etc., and explaining to the buyer, this is an off-market property. You're going to have to pay me the commission. You negotiate the commission, you have it in writing, and then you can move forward and the buyer would pay you the commission. It has to be in writing, guys. Another thing that happens with wholesalers is they will say the seller's bottom line is 300. If you want to get paid whatever commission, you put it on top. And that's very common. You'll see it shopped around that way. If that happens, and sometimes the wholesalers will even say, we're willing to pay you X amount, I would have them sign a for sale by owner form, committing and binding them to that commission. Because if you do the contract, and this is not a standard a standard contract, because the standard NJAR contracts of sales state on the top that this contract is to be used in conjunction with an active listing. So if it's not an active listing, technically you're not supposed to use our New Jersey Association of Realtor contracts. So you don't want to be cut out, and you don't want down the line the daisy chain or the wholesaler to not pay you a commission because it's not listed and there's no binding commission agreement. So I would have them sign a FSBO form if they're offering to pay the commission so that you're protected in that case. But again, guys, you're only the buyer agent. It's not a dual agency, even though it's not listed. And keep in mind, you have to sort out the commissions because most of the time there is no commission, or the wholesaler saying that they can add it to the price, but you have to be very, very careful with that. So we talked about how they source these properties. We talked about understanding what wholesalers are and how they get paid, etc. So one question is, can you list a property that's being wholesaled? And the answer is yes. It's called a contract seller. At least one of the MLSs even has that in as a category where you can put that it's a contract seller that does not own the home, but they have the legal rights to. If someone's approaching you to list a wholesale property, you have to make sure that it's assignable. and you have to look at the paperwork and make sure that they're actually buying it from the owner or have the contract from the owner, and it's an assignable contract. So I would have an attorney just look at that before you actually put in a listing, so that it's compliant, not breaking any rules, and it doesn't come back to bite you. Uh, when you do go in contract, whether you're representing a buyer or whatever transaction side of the transaction you're on with the wholesaler, keep in mind that the terms are usually very, very strict. And one thing that you will almost always see is a non-refundable deposit, and they mean that. They will not release the monies, even if it's held by a title company. They won't authorize the release and will hold it forevermore because it costs them nothing to hold it and not authorize it. So the buyers wind up having to either forfeit it, get an attorney, litigate, or not get their deposit back. So keep in mind that the terms are going to be strict. A lot of times there's no interior access to the property. Also, 100% as is. Those are usually the terms with wholesale deals. Last but not least, do some agents wholesale? Yes, I don't love it because it can get a little bit of it into a gray area where you always have your realtor hat on. You're always acting in that capacity, even when you disclose that you're looking as a private individual. So it does get into a gray area if agents are wholesaling. But I do know multiple agents that do wholesale, and if you're going to do it, just be very, very careful with it, as you don't want to cross the line and open yourself up to liability. So that's what I have about wholesaling, kind of explaining the process. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Let me quickly take a look and see if there's any questions in our Facebook group here. All right. I do not see any other questions. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this answered some questions on wholesaling. But if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Everyone have a great Tuesday. Happy selling, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.